What's going on, everybody? Anthony Cervino here on the RotoWire YouTube channel with my top 5 must-start players for Week 12. Let's get right into it. Number 1 with Brian Robinson. And Brian Robinson, solid week last week, 14.2 PPR points. His first game coming off injury against a very tough Philadelphia Eagles defense that is currently ascending. 16 carries, 63 yards, a touchdown. He also hauled in his only target for a 9-yard gain. But before the injury issues with Brian Robinson, he was one of the better running backs in the NFL. He was one of the more reliable running backs in fantasy football. Deceptive pass catcher. In fact, he averages 11.9 yards after the catch, 91st percentile using the tools on rotowire.com. He's averaging 3.3 yards after contact. He is also getting 15.9 touches per game, and this is a backfield he shares with Austin Eckler and Jaden Daniels, and this guy is still effective. Brian Robinson could have his best game of the year this week against the Dallas Cowboys. We know this Cowboys defense, it is reeling. You can beat them through the air. You can also really beat them on the ground. No team has really struggled to run the football against Dallas this season. They've been gashed left and right, most notably this week by Joe Mixon, having one of the best games, not only of the season, but of his career against Dallas. And I think we can have a similar outcome for Brian Robinson. He's an absolute smash start this week. Another running back we are starting is James Conner, the Arizona Cardinals running back. They're coming off the bye, and guess what? They're playing for first place. They're playing for something real down the stretch, and I think this team has enough on both sides of the football to do some damage. And if they're going to have success and try to steamroll into the postseason, James Conner is going to have to play big. And we know one thing about James Conner is that he normally misses at least a handful of games due to injury, knock on wood. It hasn't happened yet, and hopefully it doesn't happen the rest of the way, because there's some really nice matchups on his rest of season schedule. And it begins this week at Seattle. James Conner, despite being 29 years old, he's having one of the better seasons of his career. He is getting 18.3 touches per game with a 29.6% broken tackle rate. That is 98th percentile. 49.7% of the snaps, he is getting a touch. He is an ultra part of this offense. And this is another guy, like we talked about B-Rob earlier, a very good receiver out of the backfield. James Conner averages 12.4 yards after the catch, which is 95th percentile. This guy is money all but 2 games this year with double-digit PPR points. He had his best game in Week 10 going into the bye against the New York Jets. 5 receptions for 80 yards on 5 targets as a receiver. Also ran the ball 12 times for 33 yards. Not very efficient, but did find the end zone against the Jets. Now he gets Seattle. And what I love about this Seattle matchup, well, yeah, they're middle of the pack. James Conner, in his career, has always dominated the Arizona Cardinals. He's had 3 games over 20.9 PPR points. In every single game he's played against the Cardinals, which is 5 of them, he's had at least 11.4. And the last 2 out of the past 3 times he's played them, 27.3 in 2021, 30.4 last season. We are absolutely firing up James Conner with confidence. We're going to go to wide receivers. I'm going to stay in this Seahawks-Cardinals matchup, and I absolutely love Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's been disappointing. He's been erratic. He's been volatile. But Marvin Harrison Jr., the last time we saw him in that aforementioned Jets matchup going into the bye, a solid 16.4 PPR points, caught all 5 of his targets for 54 yards and a touchdown. Now, during this run between weeks 5 to 10, a lot of really tough matchups, a lot of top 10 matchups when it comes to difficulty and stopping the wide receiver position in fantasy. Well, in 2 out of his past 3 difficult matchups, I just talked about, he got a nice outing against the Jets. He also had a very nice outing, 23.1 PPR points against Miami, and that secondary, led by Jalen Ramsey, hauled in 6 of 7 for 111 and a touchdown. So we are starting to see the connection between Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. gel. We are starting to see him show up despite the matchup. But the good thing coming out of the bye, the matchups, they open up. Down the stretch, Marvin Harrison Jr. has one of the better wide receiver matchup schedules of any player in the wide receiver pool. And again, we know he gets Seattle this week. And Seattle's defense, they played better earlier this season, but they've been extremely leaky in the second half. This isn't the same team. This team seems like they're missing something. You can score on them. I see this game being a shootout. And if this game is a shootout, look for Marvin Harrison Jr. to have a big role. The next player we're going to talk about is also in this matchup. I am attacking this matchup. It's Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And Smith-Njigba, we might be finally seeing the breakout. Back-to-back games over 21 PPR points, the third 20-plus point PPR outing of the year. That first one before the bye, week 9, he pops for 37 against the Rams. A lot of people, including myself, did not trust him. I need to see him do it again, and he does it again against San Francisco, who are 10th against wide receivers. This is now back-to-back games, over 11 targets, at least 7 receptions, at least 110 yards. If this is a breakout for JSN, I think it could continue this week against Arizona. I just said it. I love this game to be a shootout. While the Cardinals' defense is ascending and Seattle's defense is descending itself, there's fireworks to be had. Both teams can run the football, both teams can throw the football, and both teams have enough weapons to score the football on each other. There's a lot of fantasy production here. And if JSN continues to see the volume he's been getting, then I think JSN could compile another quality fantasy outing with some ceiling, especially if he finds the end zone. Remember, if you like content like this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the alert icon, so you can be notified anytime we go live to answer your questions, or we drop content just like this. If you have trade questions, start sit questions, waiver wire questions, anything at all, ask them in the comment section below. We will get back to you as soon as we can. We're going to close this out with Mike Evans. Mike Evans coming off injury. He's fully expected to play. He has not played since week 8 with the hamstring injury, but it looks like coming off the bye week in Tampa's first game, Mike Evans will be there. We know who Mike Evans is. We know how reliant Baker Mayfield is on Mike Evans. And Baker Mayfield, let's face it, he's been playing really good football, even without Evans and Godwin in the lineup. But he's getting his guy back. And what I love about Evans this week is the matchup against the Giants. The Giants are actually, if you look, they're pretty good against wide receivers. They're the 11th toughest matchup. But Mike Evans, we know when he's on, he's relatively matchup proof. And I think Evans can win against any defensive back the New York Giants are going to put out there. Now, the Giants have given up double-digit PPR points to every top receiver they faced this year, outside of week 2 against Washington, before Jaden Daniels in McLaurin even started to click. And then last week, or week 10 going into the bye against the Carolina Panthers overseas. But every other receiver they faced managed to have a good game in fantasy. But Evans is special when he gets the New York Giants. Every single game that Mike Evans has played against the Giants since 2015, he's gone for at least 16.5 PPR points. 4 of those games, he's gone for over 20 against the New York Giants. And I know the last time they played 2021, long time ago, but sometimes players just have a team's number. Sometimes a team has a player's number. And with Mike Evans this week, I'm going to bank on the fact that historically he absolutely positively smashes the New York Football Giants.